So I just beat Terraria, but the entire time I was so insanely confused. Like, what is going on? What are these beings? Why are they here? What is the obsession with eyeballs and worms? But today I'm hoping I can learn the lore of Terraria to fully understand everything that's going on. I've got my notes and I'm ready for class to begin. I've actually been waiting to watch this video for a long time now. I've had this on my watch later for like 4 weeks.
Terraria is a game that I hold very, very close to my heart. Not only do I share a birthday with it, but it's also one of my favorite and most played games of all time. I've watched it grow and change.
Hold up. Most played game, 825 hours? That's like nothing, I feel like. Wait, let me read what it said. He says, we don't talk about the modded console/mobile. Okay.
I've watched it grow and change alongside me for 13 years. But one thing about Terraria that has never changed is the presence of some strange narrative implications. I'm sure a lot of you remember asking yourselves the first time you played Terraria, what the hell is an Eye of Cthulhu? The game's most recognizable and often first boss single-handedly had millions questioning what the presence of an eldritch being like Cthulhu could mean, though I doubt most of the people who have played Terraria cared to think past that. The story simply isn't the point of the game. Well, 14 years and a laughable amount of final updates later, the game has actually managed to...
I was actually worrying that because I swore before I played the game, I saw I had a final update like a while ago. But then everybody was telling me when I first picked up the game that I picked it up at a good time because there was a big update. But I was so fucking confused because I didn't know when this final update happened or if it was actually the real final update. So I really never even talked about it because I didn't want to say stuff I wasn't really informed on, you know?
Years and a laughable amount of final updates later, the game has actually managed to produce what I would designate a semi-cohesive story. Though developers have clarified that the game's lore is purposefully vague, I've put together my own interpretation of the game using the clues left behind. And today, I'd like to share that vision with you. So with that said, my name is Manaxa, and today I'm going to tell you the story of Terraria's lore.
Hi, Manaxa.
Sit back, grab a snack, and let's get right into it.
Alright, let's see this. The Legend of Terraria, Chapter 1.
Now, before we truly begin our journey, we need to know what happened before our time. The Legend of Terraria, passed down by the Order of the Guide, tells us of this. A tale of good and evil. A marvelous recollection of a war and its consequences on the world. And it goes like this. In the beginning, the gods established a balance within nature and created infinite, parallel Terraria worlds. Each world is a living being that feels and knows everything that happens in them.
That's in the lore?
And each was given the task of maintaining balance and order at all costs. Centuries before our time, the world of Terraria was full of life, different creatures and peoples all living together. Whether or not this was a time of peace or a time of war, we really don't know, save for a specific, prosperous ancient city. Unfortunately, these times of relative peace would come to an end with the appearance of a powerful being known as Cthulhu, craving nothing but destruction. His presence threatened not only the mentioned city, but the entirety of Terraria. This conflict would later be known as the War of Cthulhu. A powerful race known as the Dryads, who had an innate connection to the land, managed to fend him off, but they weren't powerful enough to kill him outright. Instead, they inflicted heavy damage, ripping out his eyes, spine, and parts of his skeleton and brain, forcing a retreat to the dark side of the moon.
What?
There he'd slowly regenerate his power and plot to someday return.
So the monsters are part of Cthulhu? Wait, where the fuck did the worms come from?
Ripping out his eyes, spine.
They're his spine? How the what? Okay. Okay.
And parts of his skeleton and brain, forcing a retreat to the dark side of the moon. There he'd slowly regenerate his power and plot to someday return. Of all the Dryads, only one survived this war, leaving the future of the world in dire straits. Even though Cthulhu had been banished, he could still influence the world from the moon, spreading evil and hatred throughout. Countless horrible and unnatural creatures began to roam the realm, and many found themselves struck with a fascination, as opposed to fear, of Cthulhu. Because of this, a small group of cultists formed with the goal of assisting in his revival, led by a particularly obsessed zealot.
Fuck those guys.
Regarding the ancient city, the skeletal remains of Cthulhu were so powerful on their own that their mere presence manifested a curse on its entirety. The curse caused everyone in the city to go insane, living long past their due and decaying down to their bones, forever left to rot.
The dungeon was a city? What? That is like a fucked up city. I mean, god damn, I would hate living down there. No wonder they went crazy, dude.
It was now a dungeon. A benevolent old man is also affected by this curse, being forced to act as the guardian of the dungeon. Never being allowed to leave, he would transform into the giant skeletal remains of Cthulhu should anyone attempt to break in. The role was likely thrust upon him by the cult, who accommodated the city and eventually used it as a base of operations. The parts of Cthulhu's brain and spine also went on to influence the world after they were left behind, becoming the rulers of two separate forces that would aggressively attempt to overthrow the world balance. The remaining Terrarians, who avoided terrible fates whether due to the curse or Cthulhu's wrath, went into hiding. The great civilizations that once inhabited the world faded into mere memory, and much time passed. Eventually, the cult identified a genius engineer capable of greatly expediting their cause. Against his will, they instruct the old man to kidnap this genius and bring her to the dungeon.
Okay, how the fuck... Are we not like thousands of years in the past? How did this engineer survive till then? How did this old man... This man already looks like he's going to die. How did he survive until then? How did... The pirate guy? That's why I was immediately confused. That's the first thing I noticed, because this is supposed to be like 1,000 years in the past. Maybe the Dryad I understand, because maybe she's some like ancient, I don't even know, life being. But this is starting to cross the line with the mechanic and the pirate.
With no other choice, she provides the cult with mechanical reconstructions of Cthulhu's body parts, either in an effort to assist Cthulhu or make a new Cthulhu entirely.
She's evil?
If she had finished the mechanical brain, it may have spelled doom for the entire world. This time, for good. And that's where we come in.
Humble Beginnings, Chapter 2.
At last, our journey begins in a forest, with nothing to our name, except for some rudimentary tools. Strangely, someone else is here with us. Scott, the guide. We don't know much about the guides, aside from the fact that they are an organized group that passes down their accumulation of knowledge across generations, including the legend that I just told. So, fittingly, he seems to be here to help us navigate this unfamiliar world. His first piece of advice leads us to begin gathering some useful resources and begin putting together a basic shelter. Before long, though, night falls, and it's here that we learn that floating demon eyes and the undead rule the night. In this world, it's kill or be killed. With the outside avenues surrounded by enemies, our only option is to dig down and wait until the night passes. Thankfully, the underground is also a place that provides. During this spelunking, we receive a message that a person has actually moved into our home, Milton the Merchant. This proves that the land of Terraria has more people than just us and the guide, though most are probably travelers who don't see any value in or are incapable of making their own permanent settlements. Speaking to him, the first thing he says, "I hope a scrawny kid like you isn't all that is standing between us and Cthulhu's eye."
Asshole.
This serves as a reminder that the threat of Cthulhu is still ever present in the minds of everyone, and we are apparently in no shape to face this issue. Though, even just in our first day, we've managed to gather a few things to make ourselves considerably stronger. And by now, it should be clear that the land has an abundance of resources that it can provide us with. We just need to work to gather and refine them into tools we can use to defend ourselves. Interestingly, natural resources are not all that can be found. There are cabins, chests, and statues littered throughout the underground, lending credence to the fact that somebody had to have been down here before us. Although, considering the dilapidated state of them all, this was clearly a long time ago. One of these cabins contains a curious little item, a suspicious-looking eye, said to summon the Eye of Cthulhu that we just learned about.
Yeah, don't use that, kid. No, but it actually took me way too long to find this. I remember I was playing for like 6 hours before I fucking found this eye, man. It was my second day too. No, I was so many hours into my playthrough before I found the fucking eye. I couldn't find any bosses for so long. I was so confused, so lost. I almost stopped right there and there.
After equipping newfound items and making preparations, we set out to explore the outskirts of the world in search of more, only to find a terrible, decaying wasteland to the east of our settlement, the Corruption. Now, there are several concepts from the legend that I have omitted, as I want to bring them up when appropriate. The Corruption is described in the legend as a cancer caused by the sins of those living in the world of Terraria. It knows nothing else but to consume everything it touches, leaving behind terrible creatures of hate that exist for the sole reason to cause pain in punishment for the unearned pleasure experienced by living things.
And that's what they do.
After it restores balance to life, it destroys it, with the goal of turning the entire world into a desolate abyss, void of life. This force is but one of several that act in tandem to maintain this sense of balance within the world of Terraria. The corruption can spread, but it does so slowly and can easily be quenched. As it stands, it does not pose a threat to the entire world. Though, as we will come to find out, these forces tend to overcompensate and do more harm than good. The corruption is also but one side of a coin, with its counterpart being the Crimson. Generally, these cannot coexist, though with some intervention, it's certainly possible. In legend, it is described as a single emergent living being connected directly to each world, sharing a hive mind and solely focused on restoring balance at all costs. Thousands of worlds before this one have been absorbed by this being. Many misguided people have even made the horrific mistake of raising the Crimson to the level of a deity, conducting human sacrifices to it to placate the monstrosity or seek its favor. To me, the origin of the Crimson seems rather simple. The severed piece of Cthulhu's brain formed a consciousness of its own and manifested a hive mind that acts similarly to the corruption. Though in this particular world, the Crimson and by extension, the brain of Cthulhu are not present. Although the corruption, unlike the Crimson, seems to unambiguously be caused by natural events, I do believe that it is still connected to one of Cthulhu's other body parts.
I don't know, man. Come on. That's a bit of a stretch. That being the spine? It's a worm, bro. I mean, I guess, like, every single part could be, like, a different vertebrae, but that's disgusting. That makes me have, like, even more of the opposite of respect for the Moon Lord, dude. Like, that's disgusting.
Specifically, his spine. It is possible that both of these forces existed before Cthulhu appeared and were simply exacerbated by his presence, or they specifically were manifested by the world after Cthulhu showed up. Regardless of which origin is correct, by this point we've already accounted for where 3 of the 4 Cthulhu body parts are. After briefly exploring the underground corruption and destroying a shadow orb by suggestion of the guide, we then proceed to explore further west, encountering the desert and the jungle. By this point, we have acquired ample accommodations to take on the threat the merchant told us about. After some brief final preparations, our first battle begins.
This isn't how my shit went at all. Holy. I love how the storytelling's like, it makes it sound so smooth. Like, day 1 you're doing all this shit. I was on like day 15 before I got to the Eye of Cthulhu.
With that, Cthulhu's eye is swiftly defeated, marking the first step in our journey towards saving Terraria.
What's that? I'm guessing it's a master or expert mode specific drop, because I heard there's a lot of drops. They're only in expert and master mode, which is why I'm super excited to be doing an expert and master mode playthrough before I do Calamity. I'm not sure which one, but we'll see.
Oils from the eye leading to weapons fashioned from the corruption's ore, Demonite, we can now venture further into the world to discover what we've yet to find. Heading to the far east, we eventually encounter the ruins of the ancient city, the dungeon.
Boom, boom, boom! Oh, Dungeons and Dryads.
The front entrance is guarded by the cursed old man, who tells us that we are not nearly strong enough to free him from his master. He clearly has our safety at heart, so for now we must leave him to his own devices. With that said, we then build an ocean town and some more throughout the world in order to establish a pylon network for ease of travel. In the process of building housing on the outskirts, goblin scouts occasionally appear with hostile intent. Defeating them drops some tattered cloth, a material that we could use to summon their entire army. It's interesting to note that there are quite a few travelers and other races hiding away in the world still, but they lack the level of scale and organization that the civilizations of Terraria once had. Among those that do show up is someone very important, the final Dryad. Before we can get the opportunity to talk to her, the blood moon rises, which means new creatures to terrorize the night. The villagers become noticeably more irritable during this event, and many that would normally be peaceful are transformed into evil versions of themselves.
What?
Considering the similar theme of being corrupted and the bloody grotesque creatures aligning with the Crimson, I wouldn't be surprised if this blood moon was an unnatural phenomenon caused by Cthulhu's influence reaching all the way from the dark side of the moon. Once the jungle town is finished, we can finally speak with the last remaining Dryad from the legend. When talking to her, we can even check the status of our world, with it currently being 8% corrupt. She insists that we must cleanse the world, and also mentions she's 500 years old. This implies that Cthulhu's invasion could have taken place as much as around 5 centuries ago. It's possible she had been in hiding ever since then, but with the defeat of Cthulhu's Eye, she mustered the confidence to come to us and guide us towards a brighter future. So now we have a secondary objective: bring the world to a state of complete purity. Although she sells a purification powder which could help the cause, it isn't nearly effective enough to use on a large scale. Until we get better tools to accomplish this task, it will unfortunately have to be put on hold. Later, we find and locate the Aether, a small area that contains a mysterious...
Aether? What the hell is the... Whoa. Is that the shimmer or whatever?
Liquid with transmutative properties.
I never seen this. I went through my whole playthrough. It took... I don't even know how many hours. Probably like 30 or 40 or 50 hours. That's a broad range, but honestly, it could be anywhere between there. I don't know. It's definitely above 20. But I never saw the shimmer. I feel like I explored everywhere. I found the... so much exploration stuff, but never the shimmer.
Although any information regarding its origin is limited or non-existent, its ability to transform NPCs into alternate versions of themselves leads me to believe it may have something to do with a connection between the infinite parallel worlds that exist within the Terraria universe. Back at home base, we gather enough materials to craft a goblin battle standard, figuring that the army will likely show up sooner or later to search for their fallen scouts. And so, the battle begins.
Oh, I had this happen! Once. Only once.
With our current strength, this fight is no easy one, but even still, we manage to succeed without a single death to our name, and the goblin army is defeated. Feeling emboldened by the victory, we move on to the corruption's vile deity, breaking 2 more shadow orbs to summon the Eater of Worlds.
Emboldened, you say? Oh! Yeah, I remember this guy was scary.
This battle was even closer, being nearly on the brink of death for arguably more of the fight than not. Regardless, the Eater of Worlds, the deity of the corruption, is defeated. With new equipment bolstering our defense, we can now use gravitation potions to safely explore the skies above, encountering many floating sky islands and empty buildings still in pristine condition. We have no idea who created these houses or who previously inhabited them, but either way, they left behind many things to aid in our quest. Later on, in the midst of selling the spoils from the Sky Islands for a profit, slime begins to rain from the sky. This peculiar event culminates in the summoning of the King Slime, a conglomeration of dozens of blue slimes that came together to form a leader greater than the sum of their parts. Curiously, we can see a person, just like us, actually stuck inside of it, but when we defeat this slime, only his clothes drop, implying he may have dissolved in the process of our fight.
Alright.
Oops.
Chapter 4, Guardians!
With the surface and skies of the world all but fully explored, the only remaining option is to dig until we reach the bottom, and in doing so we encounter a new, sinister area of the underground: Hell. Immediately we find an enemy called a voodoo demon carrying a suspiciously familiar guide voodoo doll, with its description reading, "You are a terrible person." This item's purpose and existence are pretty mysterious. It can be used to hurt the guide, but why would we want to? Why was a demon carrying this item? And where did it come from? The guide was already a mysterious figure, possessing oddly specific knowledge about the world. Either way, it's clear that something terrible will happen if we use the doll, so for now, we move on to doing other things. We find and free the bound goblin tinkerer, who says he was tied up and left underground by the other goblins. He allows us to combine many of the—
He was in the dungeon. He wasn't underground. Or did I get like a lucky seed where he was in the dungeon? Wait.
accessories we've acquired so far, which puts us at a point in which we can contend with the old man's curse. So, that night, we return to the entrance of the ancient city and confront the dungeon's guardian once more, and the battle begins. In an instant, the old man transforms into the cursed remains of Cthulhu's skeleton. His massive hands flail through the air, and upon them being destroyed, he starts firing magic skulls. The old man arguably had the worst fate out of everyone that fell to the curse. He was blessed with immortality, but he didn't go insane or rot like the rest of them. At the very least, they weren't conscious of what was happening. He's likely been forced to reside outside the dungeon for decades or even centuries, and nobody has ever been powerful enough to free him of his curse. Until now. With the Guardian defeated, the three parts of Cthulhu present in our world have all been conquered, and we can now enter what remains of the ancient city. Littered throughout are the bones of those who once called this place home, along with locked chests containing their lost belongings. Based on the abilities of those left behind and evidence from the various items, it's clear that the civilization that previously inhabited this place was very advanced, skilled in summoning, alchemy, and capable of utilizing mechanical and magical weapons. Of particular note are the faction flags and paintings that can be found all over the place. Now, the 6 faction flags are a bit less interesting, but I find it cool that they can be associated with certain adversaries within the dungeon. The obvious implication here is that the ancient city once had conflicting groups with different interests, which I think is just a fun detail to uncover. More interesting, though, is the paintings that can be found in the dungeon. Many of them depict events tied directly to Cthulhu, such as the Blood Moon, the Old Man, and the Recreations.
Wait, did you see that one? That one was the Hollow and the Crimson meeting each other, but the Crimson doesn't happen until we activate hard mode. So does that mean back in the day, the Hollow was a thing, but then the fall of Cthulhu got rid of the Hollow?
Of Cthulhu. While looting the dungeon, we find someone of particular interest to us as well, the mechanic, tied up and abandoned. We knew she was being used by the cult to manufacture Cthulhu's mechanical body parts, but we didn't know what happened to her after that. It almost seems as if she was tied up and left behind in a hurry, like the members of the cult were here, but fled without her after we defeated the Guardian. This would explain why the mechanical brain was never finished, because we interfered by freeing the old man and the mechanic before she could ever do so. Even the mere existence of the cult and the mechanical Cthulhu recreations were merely rumors and hushed whispers among the wider world, at least according to the legend. So with this in mind, we can evaluate how the cult operates. They don't feel the need to appear before us directly, rather preferring to work in the shadows away from attention. But even though it was indirect, we had finally gotten to the point where we could disturb their plans. After freeing him from his curse, the old man moves in as the clothier. Both the clothier and the mechanic share a mutual hatred towards each other, though for some odd reason, they don't quite seem to remember why. When in her presence, the clothier says, "I keep having vague memories of tying up a woman and throwing her in a dungeon." Likewise, all the mechanic has to say about him is that he doesn't know how to treat a woman. The mechanic also tells the player that she hates the caverns if you bring her to them, remarking that it reminds her of a traumatic experience. But once again, she doesn't specify what she means by that. In general, I find it hard to believe the mechanic wouldn't warn us of the machines she built while she was trapped in the dungeon, so I believe both of them had their memories tampered with by the cult. Later on, after getting acquainted with each other, the mechanic and Goblin Tinkerer develop mutual feelings. In fact, most of the villagers have someone they particularly enjoy being around, whether it be out of romantic interest, strange...
I mean, I noticed it with the nurse and the gun guy. But wait, Vicod and the Tavern Keep are a thing? Oh shit.
infatuation, or just plain old camaraderie. So clearly, we've managed to turn the world into a safer place for those who lived in fear of Cthulhu, defeating many evils on our path. The villagers are comfortable enough to express themselves and their
I thought Vicod was my bitch, dude. No!
interests and intermingle with each other. But with that being said, now what do? We can't possibly hope to take on Cthulhu as it stands, but the world has run out of means for us to grow stronger. When asking the guide for assistance, he only has one more piece of advice for us. When you are ready to challenge the Keeper of the Underworld, you will have to make a living sacrifice. Everything you need for it can be found in the Underworld. I think it's finally time to talk about the suspicious history of our guide. Having an abundance of accumulated knowledge is reasonable, but the guide doesn't just know a lot, he knows everything about everything.
No the fuck he doesn't, bro. This guy's a dumb ass. I swear to God, Asher. If he knows everything about everything, then he's just an asshole because he talks in the most riddle-ish riddles ever. Yeah, I said riddle-ish. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But why doesn't he just tell me, oh, you have to throw the voodoo doll that looks like me into the lava. You get the voodoo doll that looks like me from killing the demons down there. He has to tell it in some weird-ass way.
It begs the question, is there more to the guide than meets the eye? I believe there is.
Me too.
Earlier, I purposefully ignored the most important dungeon painting in order to bring it up at this very moment. It's a parody of the creation of Adam, titled The Creation of the Guide. The original famous painting was a depiction of the biblical Adam, the first man, being created by God in his image. This biblical parallel is no coincidence. We know that each Terraria world is alive and aware of everything happening on it, which seems to mirror the characteristics of an omnipresent god. Not only that, but the legend also tells us of a guardian who serves as the world's master, its protector. Considering the evidence, I can say with confidence that this guardian is the guide himself, sent to us by the world. He is the living sacrifice, and the voodoo doll being burnt in hell is simply a convenient method for us to perform this sacrifice. His instruction, therefore, is made clear. If we can't surpass him here, we aren't worthy of continuing our journey. This isn't just a challenge from the man who helped us get this far. It's a challenge from the world itself. And so, we accept. And the battle begins. After the doll melts in the lava, a giant moving wall of flesh, eyes, and mouths appears and makes its way towards us. The very sight makes us horrified. What even is this thing that we're looking at? How was this the guide's true form the whole time?
What?
Regardless, using everything that he taught us, we stand our ground and eventually defeat the World Guardian.
That's the guide's true form? I thought he was gonna go down the road. Oh yes, Asher the guide. He is a god, so that when you got rid of him, it allows the demons of this world to come up. But no, Asher was a horrible being this whole time. I knew it.
With the World Guardian slain, the ancient spirits of light and dark previously held back are released into the world. According to the legend, these spirits were freed in an attempt to expedite the search for a new guardian, which I believe is now our role to fill. But this process has severe consequences for the world at large, as it simultaneously greatly expedites the spread of the corruption and introduces a new force, the overcompensation of purity known as the Hollow. Although the world is now in greater peril than it has been for perhaps centuries, the spoils of our victory against the Guardian included a hammer that lets us smash the demonic altars in the corruption, leading to stronger metals for us to find underground. Given enough time, we collect enough to make weapons and gear far surpassing anything we've previously had access to, and simultaneously, we discover some sinister objects along the way. The mechanical eye, worm, and skull, all clearly similar to the object we used to summon Cthulhu's eye at the beginning of our journey. Each object summons one of the 3 mechanical simulacrums of Cthulhu's body parts that were completed by the mechanic. Across 2 nights, we swiftly defeat the twins, Destroyer,
Disgusting beings. Fuck that guy.
and Skeletron Prime.
Easy peasy.
And upon landing the final blow, the upset in the balance of power causes a disturbance within the jungle. With the mechanic under our protection, the cult has no hope of rebuilding these parts and will have to resort to some other avenue to meet their goals. In the meantime, we craft new gear using the souls of Might, Fright, and Sight, along with the metal scraps from their armor. The source of this strange metal, known as hollowed bars, are unknown, but I would guess that the mechanic was the only one who knew how to build with it, and the souls contained within the mechs were probably stolen from the dungeon. Moving over to the jungle to investigate the disturbance, we can find a peculiar glowing pink bulb. Once prepared, we harvest the bulb, only to awaken Plantera, the jungle's dormant floral guardian. And so, the battle begins.
Easiest boss in the fucking game. Maybe not easiest scaled, but I mean, like, this guy doesn't do anything to fight you back.
Once we take her down, screams echo from the dungeon, and she provides us with a temple key. Much earlier in our journey, during our initial exploration of the underground jungle, we encountered the entrance to this temple, but naturally it was locked. It's only now that we can finally go inside to uncover the lizard people. The bestiary describes them as reclusive people, implying that they may have locked themselves away of their own volition, or it was simply used to describe the fact that they were locked away. Strangely, the witch doctor who appears after Queen Bee is defeated is one of these lizard people, but can be found outside the temple, which the bestiary notes is unusual. Their intent to distance themselves is further supported by the excessive amount of deadly traps present in the temple, and the fact that they built themselves a stone guardian, known to us as Golem, in the deepest and largest chamber. Considering the general theming and iconography surrounding the temple, it seems reasonable to assume that the lizard people worship the sun, with Golem being a physical construct meant to harness the sun's power through the use of the power cells. The temple also contains chests, some of which have solar tablets in them, and these tablets are capable of willfully calling forth a solar eclipse.
Oh, that is interesting, because these are people that will never ever see the sun. And like everything that revolves around them down there is related to the sun. That is cool. I never thought of that. Oh.
This relationship to the sun they clearly have is also thematically appropriate if you assume they fled underground to hide from Cthulhu, who represents the moon. And while I do believe they ended up locked in the temple because they fled from Cthulhu, it still doesn't explain why the key was in Plantera's possession. Perhaps it was given to her intentionally to place it under her protection, or maybe it was stolen from them by the witch doctor, explaining why he isn't locked away with the rest of his people. Either way, the temple isn't the only thing that we gained access to following Plantera's defeat, as the dungeon is now infested with stronger adversaries, perhaps being the cult's attempt to deter any further progress. Unfortunately for them, if this is the case, it has the complete opposite effect, providing us with what we need to triumph over the Temple Guardian. Following this, Martians unexpectedly invade from space, but this is nothing more than a bump on the road for us now. Their defeat merely serves as yet another stepping stone to make us stronger for our battle against Cthulhu, which, by now, doesn't seem too far away. But the cult knows this too.
The impending
The cult
doom.
has had their
Chapter
eyes
6.
on us. Perhaps the entire time we've been on our journey. But defeating Golem was too much for them to ignore. They couldn't afford to hide in the shadows anymore. 4 members gathered outside the dungeon entrance and began a ritual. 2 devotees worship the mysterious tablet above, while the other 2 archers stand guard. What's their goal in performing this ritual? To summon Cthulhu? To help him gain back his power on the moon? To prevent him from coming back too soon? These are all questions we can't yet answer. For now, we need to make preparations for whatever they're planning. So we take on the solar eclipse to craft the Terra Blade, and the pumpkin moon to craft spooky wings. And those final preparations give us the confidence we need to disturb their ritual. The 4 cultists are weak and go down in an instant, but a 5th appears out of thin air, the leader of the cult. He siphons the power from the tablet and rises into the air, preparing to attack you. And so, the battle begins. At this point, the potential outcomes of this battle are ambiguous at best. We don't know if we successfully interrupted the ritual and he's fighting out of revenge, or if his absorbing the emblem's power was actually him continuing the ritual and he's simply fending us off until he finishes it. With the power he absorbed, the lunatic cultist uses ancient magic in a desperate fit to get rid of us, but he could never be successful. He was too late, and so we defeat him.
It's a pain in the ass, though, I'm not gonna lie.
But something is wrong.
What's wrong?
The cultist's defeat acts as a catalyst for a terrible calamity, as connections with 4 planets are made, and the hostile inhabitants of each begin to invade through these connections. 4 celestial pillars appear at the crossroads between worlds: the Nebula, Solar, Vortex, and Stardust pillars. In the bestiary, these pillars are described as towers that hold the seal, locking away a terrifying tyrant. The alien adversaries that accompany them guard them with their life and must be defeated in order to damage and eradicate them.
Biggest
These
assholes
seals
ever.
are all that's left between us and Cthulhu. But you might be wondering, why would we want to break these seals? Shouldn't we prevent Cthulhu from showing up? Where did this invasion even come from, and how is the cultist's defeat connected to it?
But we have to put it to an
doesn't make
end.
sense for the cult to perform the ritual that we interrupted out in public view when they were operating in the shadows all this time, especially when the 4 that were there to oversee it were so weak. I believe this ritual was a trap to lure us in. The lunatic cultist wanted us to show up and stop the ritual so they could swoop in at the last second and absorb all of the power being collected in the mysterious tablet. Then, they did genuinely intend on getting rid of us right then and there using that power, but they realized towards the end of the battle that they were inevitably going to fail. So in a last-ditch effort, they used all of their remaining power to summon the celestial invasion. This is why the message, "Celestial creatures are invading," appears immediately before the lunatic cultist has been defeated. Of course, this plan does still have its holes. Cthulhu hadn't finished regenerating his body or power quite yet, but the lunatic cultist doesn't care about the consequences that this gambit might have. They simply wanted Cthulhu to return, and they were forced to play their final hand. And if we were on any ordinary journey, as any ordinary hero, this plan would have worked. We would have died many, many times attempting to thwart the celestial invasion,
That happened to
but
me.
we're not normal heroes.
No, we're not.
One after the other, one by one, each pillar goes down, and from it emerge powerful fragments that can be used to synthesize our most powerful weapons yet. Upon each pillar being destroyed, something terrifying happens to us. Your mind goes numb. You are overwhelmed with pain. Otherworldly voices linger
shit.
around you. And finally, impending doom approaches. With a certain uneasiness crawling down our back, we make our preparations as the final battle crests the horizon. The culmination of our efforts will be tested here and now, as he approaches. Practically a god, his power knows no limits. The mastermind behind all terrors which befall the world is finally freed from his lunar prison. The Moon Lord, Cthulhu. As expected, he's extremely strong. His attacks pack a punch and there's a lot of them. He has 3 true eyes of Cthulhu situated on his hands and forehead, with the latter shooting a massive laser that devastates anything in its path. It's no wonder that Cthulhu was nearly able to single-handedly destroy the world all those centuries ago. But we're just barely stronger. One by one, the 3 eyes are damaged and released, eventually opening the way to his now exposed core. In the end, it seems like we might lose, being on the very brink of death, but finally, we defeat him.
We did that! We did that.
The evil that once threatened the very existence of Terraria has been vanquished. By us. The heroes who started our journey with nothing more than a copper short sword,
off the screen.
A guide, and a dream.
No.
And now we've become more powerful of a being than he ever was, and have rightfully claimed our role as the World Guardian. That being said, our journey isn't over. Not yet. We still have a favor to fulfill.
Of freeing the world of corruption. Am I right? I'm right! I'm right. Boom, boom. See, this looks like such a hard task. That's why I didn't do it. Yeah, I was told it's just not worth it.
For the first time in centuries, the world is pure. We've conquered every enemy, gained all the power we can gain, and saved the world from Cthulhu's wrath. Terraria is finally at peace. But I suppose that's not entirely true. Sure,
because we saved this world, not all the other worlds. Like he said that the other worlds were actually in the lore. When I was first looking at this, I was thinking like that wouldn't be like shit in the lore. That's just like, you know, every world has its own lore, I guess. But if he said that every single one exists in this universe, then we have to free every world. Oh, shit, my pencil.
Saved this world, but remember, Terraria is composed of infinite worlds. No! This journey and its outcome was but one of millions of potential possibilities. There's still countless worlds to explore, Cthulhus to defeat, and even greater threats to conquer, should you choose to face them. In Terraria, there's no such thing as a journey's end. So, what do you say? Want to go back around again?
Oh, this is some bars! Holy W video, holy. This video is by Benoxa. He's an absolute goat. Holy shit, this was a W video. And yes, I will. In my master or expert mode playthrough, whichever one I do, I'm gonna save the world of Terraria once more. And then again for Calamity. But, I mean, if I do Calamity, which I think I am, I'm 90% sure. But yeah, oh my god, W video.